This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, your host. Since 2010, we've been broadcasting sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, we spotlight diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world. I invite you to listen and change how you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where you will learn about perspective shifting and habit breaking, how to positively change your mind. My guest today is Nicole Vignola. She is the author of Rewire, Break the Cycle, Alter Your Thoughts, and Create Lasting Change. Nicole is a neuroscientist and organizational consultant who specializes in making neuroscience tangible for the masses. She has an established platform for reaching millions, providing them with practical tools and science-backed methods to improve mental health, optimize reflexes, and reach peak mental performance to enhance their daily lives. Nicole has a Bachelor of Science in Neuroscience from the University of Bristol and a Master of Science in Organizational Psychology from the University of West England. Rewire is her first book, and I am so pleased to have a scientifically informed internet best friend in the house.
Oh, thank you so much. That is a wonderful intro. I should have recorded that. You're recording that.
I'm recording it. You can use it. Yay! But it's good. True. We all need one of those best friends that, tells it like it is.
Yes. Well, and the thing is, a lot of the times people think that I'm just a scientist talking at them. And I think over the years, I've gained quite a big sort of following around the fact that my followers do understand that I'm a friend. I'm here to help you with everyday things. I have the understanding of the brain and the neuroscience, but I make it tangible for people in their daily lives. So what is your brain doing when you don't get a text back? Why are you doom scrolling? Why do you self-sabotage? All these things that we all go through as humans, including myself. I'm not immune to it.
Indeed. And I think that's the funny part of all this. You and I have our subject matter areas of expertise, and yet, as good as we might be at what we do, because we're human, we're not immune. We fall into the same traps, like you and I were talking about, the things we do to soothe ourselves when we're anxious.
Yes, exactly. And I do have a tendency to suffer with anxiety as well. So I have to really keep my tools in check and my sort of habits all sort of steering in the right direction. Otherwise, it can just, catapult in the wrong direction. And I struggle to get myself back.
Snowball, right? And when the train has left the station, like when we really are on our way to an anxiety attack, you cannot reel it back. Like once that trigger goes off in the body and the brain, it's very hard to de-escalate once we're in it.
Yes, to some degree. I have some tools in the book about how to do that, which is super helpful. So I know we're going straight into it now. I'm jumping
Let's
straight
go right into it. Let's go.
Okay, perfect.
Anxiety is on. What do we do?
I love it. So walking has actually been neuroscientifically shown to reduce amygdala activation. Now, what's really interesting is they did a study in 2018 where they were looking at lateral eye movement in rats. And they found that it was reducing amygdala activity. And in the discussion of the paper, they even said, I think we just accidentally figured out how EMDR therapy works. Because we've always known that EMDR therapy worked, but we didn't understand the mechanisms of why. And I'll explain how it works. So when you are moving through the world, there are images coming through your periphery. So your eyes are stabilizing your eyes so that they don't follow everything in your sight. That stabilization is called optokinetic nystagmus. And what that is doing is that it's activating the orbitofrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain. And what that does is, because that part of the brain is active, it competes for resources with the amygdala. So if one is on, the other one can't be on. And that's what's amazing, because it helps you process your thoughts, feelings, and emotions without that trigger, that fear processing involved.
Let's explain for everybody that we all have an amygdala. And what does it do for us?
Yes. So your amygdala is responsible for detecting threats in your environment. It's responsible for other things as well, like sexual arousal. But in this context, it's fear detecting. So, but what that means is, if it's hyperactive, if it's overactive, if you're in an anxious state, it's going to attach importance and tell you that things are threatening when they may not be, which can lead you to catastrophize, trigger a stress response, make you feel worse than what it is, and worry about the future, which can keep you stuck in a loop. And going for a walk has actually, as I said, shown to reduce that activity in that area that tries to tell you that things are off in your environment. And what that does as well is that it helps you sort of reason with yourself and the thoughts and emotions. So when you come back to them, you have a more quote unquote logical mind state.
So let me just reiterate what I think I hear you saying, that it's the act of the movement and what the eye is seeing in the periphery is de-escalating the amygdala activity?
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Because your eye, the circuitry in your eyes that are stabilizing them is deactivating the amygdala. So if one circuit is on, the other one works in tandem, that one's off.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So,
and it's free.
Exactly.
Drug free.
Yes.
Good and for you in so many other ways, right? Because when you go out for a walk, you're getting exercise, you're exercising your heart, right? You're getting the benefit of the sun, vitamin C, vitamin D, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right?
Exactly. So you've got all these endorphins, you've got something called myokines, which are little molecules that get released from the muscle when you put them under tension. And these little proteins can interact with the brain and have positive effects on them. So they can have mood boosting effects or anxiolytic effects, and various myokines will do different things. And that's what's so wonderful about putting yourself out in nature and walking when you're feeling anxious.
Oh, this is great. Let's touch upon the inherent negativity bias in every human's brain. So on top of these interventions that you're giving us, it's important to recognize that our starting point is a very primitive wiring setup.
Yeah. Yes. So we do fundamentally have this bias towards seeing negative feelings, emotions. And it's due to evolutionary reasons. It's survival. We had to be attuned to what was potentially threatening to us. So out of the 8 basic emotions, we have 4 negative ones, 2 positive ones, trust and joy. And then anticipation and surprise are either negative or positive, depending on the circumstance. Now, not only that, studies have shown that when we experience a negative stimuli, so by looking at negative images or negative words and negative information, our brain registers it more greatly. So the electrical signals in the brain go up higher when we see and hear negative words and negative images compared to positives. And that's what's really interesting, is that we not only have more negative emotions, but we also respond to them more greatly. So that can lead us down a tendency to want to focus on the negative. So if you have a social media account and you get 10 wonderful comments, but one negative one, you are more likely to go to bed worrying about the negative one. Now, the good thing is that we can change that. Over time, we can sort of rewire our brains to acknowledge the negative. Of course, it's always going to be there, and we shouldn't really try and push it away either, but change our perception of it and see that, yes, whilst there was this one negative comment, we had 10 amazing ones. Let's focus on those.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. This is really, really good. And to overcome this sort of impulsive or compulsive reaction, because it's really like a compulsion, right? We're wired to respond in this way to keep ourselves safe, even though 99.9% of the time, it's an erroneous alarm.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, that one off where truly we do have to have that fight or flight response is very, very rare.
Yes. And the good thing to know is that, fight or flight response is it can be good. It serves a purpose. It's how do you regulate from that stress thereafter so that you don't let it linger and carry it on into the rest of the day. And then you start again being triggered or easily triggered by seemingly innocuous events like someone not parking correctly or someone cutting you off. It doesn't need to trigger a stress response, but may do if you haven't regulated from the previous morning's stresses.
That never happens to me. Does it ever happen to you?
Never. No.
Never.
Do you know what's funny? I actually got cut off the other day and I actually went thumbs up to the person and I was smiling. And I thought, wow, Nick, you have really changed your tone.
Wow, that is like a magnificent evolution,
My automatic reaction was to thumbs up and go, it's okay, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah. It's all good. Let me go back to something that you said about anticipation and surprise as being possibly either negative or positive, right? Depending upon the circumstances. And I'm wondering how that relates to being in a state of distress versus eustress.
Yes.
Because stress is not necessarily bad.
No. Exactly. So, I mean, there's levels to it. And in the book, in Rewire, I've explained it as kind of arousal stress or active stress. And then you've got acute stress and then you've got chronic stress. And I guess the stress would sit within that kind of maladaptive stress that then lingers. And
contrasting and comparing the two kinds of stress and how it taps into those two emotions of anticipation and surprise.
Yes.
And how maybe that can be utilized if we're repackaging or reframing or shifting perspective, how this would be a two sets of emotions that we could really work with.
Yes. Well, anticipation could be distressing in the sense that maybe you are anticipating an email from your tax accountant to let you know how much of a tax you owe, which has been my reality this week. Or it's anticipation, like my husband's coming home. One is good, and there's no sort of good and bad. There's no morals on emotions, but it's how you manage either. So, in terms of the sort of eustress or the distress from the negative one, so waiting for that email, is trying to let go of the things that you can't control. Right? I can't control what he's going to say. I can't control what's going to come back. I can control my stress response.
Yes.
And we can actually do that through a physiological mechanism that is deeply ingrained in our primitive brain. Now, when you're stressed, you huff and puff. Have you ever noticed that? You might start sighing.
Always.
That is a good thing. We have associated that with a negative thing. We always go, oh, what are you sighing about? But actually, your brain is trying to dump carbon dioxide and it's trying to reoxygenate. And it's basically trying to reset your central nervous system back into a parasympathetic state. Now, parasympathetic state just means a place of rest and digest, calm. So we can fast track that sigh by actually performing it. And they've done studies on this at Stanford, where they basically did a double inhale through the nose, a little pause at the top, and a long exhale through the mouth. So let's do 2 rounds together. Okay, so
let's do
one. Lovely. Let's do one more. So double inhale through the nose, long exhale through the mouth. How nice is that?
It's a staycation.
Yeah, it really is. I'm going to start using that. That's really good.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to change anything.
And you can do it before a meeting. You can do it before going into the office. You can do it when someone's cut you off in traffic. And it's fairly non-invasive. You can do it in a meeting as you're about to present. Your boss is not going to be able to tell what you're doing if you do it subtly. And it has been shown to be the quickest and easiest way to regulate your central nervous system back down. So that's what I would do in a state of panic, waiting for this email to come in. Double inhale, long exhale, rationalize. I can't control this, Nick. The tax is coming in. There are two things in life we can't avoid: death and taxes.
Right. The bill is coming. You cannot prevent that bill from coming in.
Yes. So,
I love this.
Yeah, I hope that it's helpful.
It's super helpful. Let's just talk about one thing that you mentioned. I wrote this down because was really a powerful statement. There is no morals on emotions. This is fabulous.
Yes.
Right? Like, we get to have whatever emotion that we want. It's nobody's business, but it's what we do with the emotions, I think, is what we're really talking about. Like, how do we use these emotions either in service to ourselves or our situation rather than be victimized by them?
Yes. Emotions are trying to communicate something to you. And I would say honor the emotions as well. So as a little anecdote, my puppy, I say puppy, but people are always like, what kind of puppy have you got? She's a Belgian Malinois, so she's massive.
She's huge.
She's huge. She pushed me over a couple of months ago and I was wearing this Ganni designer jacket and it got caught in a handle of the door and it tore. And in that moment, I was quite irritable. I was a bit annoyed, not at her, just in the ether, in general, in life. And my mother-in-law was like, it's just a jacket. And I was so irritated with that because I thought, I am very good at regulating my emotions. I just need to be annoyed in this moment. It is annoying that my jacket tore. I took Max out for a walk. We had an amazing walk. I came back and I went, well, sod that jacket. I didn't like it anyway. It was just a jacket. So we have to feel the emotions in the moment. Pushing them away is not generally helpful. Regulating your stress response and then coming back to them with a more logical mind state is best. And it's how are you holding on to those emotions? Are you letting them affect you for the rest of the day? Had I gone to bed still crying about the jacket, that would have been a different story. But in that moment, I did need to be annoyed. It's important to be annoyed.
It's human to be annoyed. We can't be Pollyanna. Everything is good and perfect and happy. That is an irrational, unsustainable state of being.
Absolutely. So that's my message is, honor the emotions, but don't linger on them. Linger on the happy emotions, of course, but don't linger on the bad ones. Try and regulate from them, come back to them, rationalize them. Maybe don't hold on to them. There are so many methods to, being able to deal with them. And one of them that I wrote in the book is even just naming the emotion can help you reactivate that frontal cortex, which I explained earlier is a part of logic and reason. When you do that, you snap out of that kind of catastrophic, oh, my jacket's broken, and then let it bleed into the rest of the day.
You mentioned something really important, right? When we are sort of triggered and we become dysregulated and we're able to talk ourselves through the episode, we reconnect with the powerful, like the dashboard, the control panel.
Yes, the reasoning center.
Yeah,
we're talking back to Houston.
Exactly. Yes. This is a great tool. We are going to need to take a break. And when we come back, we will continue the conversation with my guest today, neuroscientist Nicole Vignola. Remember, she is the scientifically informed internet best friend and the author of Rewire, Break the Cycle, Alter Your Thoughts, and Create Lasting Change. To learn more, please visit NicoleNeuroscience.com, and you can find her on Instagram at Nicole Neuroscience. Here comes the pause. We'll be right back. Harvesting Happiness is rooted in science. Our work facilitates applied positive psychology practices through media and consulting. We're committed to sound ideas for better well-being, leading to increased life satisfaction and a better world for everyone. We're not into pseudoscience or quick fixes. We're focused on common sense backed by rigorous research. Healthy critical thinking is the foundation for our discussions. We encourage you to challenge preconceptions and explore ideas with a curiously discerning mind. Collaboration with our guests is united by an inclusive vision to boost resilience, critical thinking, communication, and problem solving through civilized discourse and pleasurable relational engagement for everyone. Each day, we have the intellectual freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable, regardless of external circumstances. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please seek support because good psychological health is vital to the achievement of a healthy and satisfying life. Visit harvestinghappiness.com for psychosocial and educational services that boost emotional and social intelligence. And we're back talking with Nicole Vignola about perspective shifting and habit breaking, how to positively change your mind. Let's rejoin the conversation. So, Nicole, let's talk about some of those chemicals that are roaming around in our bodies and what they do to us when we are in a state of flusterhood, anxiety. I just made that up. I don't think that's a real word.
I like that though, flusterhood. Well, I know, obviously we've spoken about stress hormones, but one that I would really like to talk about is dopamine. And
Ooh.
Dopamine has been wrongly labeled as the pleasure chemical. Now, it is the chemical that puts you in pursuit of pleasure. So it puts you in a motivation drive to want to gain the reward. And that's the caveat here, is that when we reach that goal, when we reach the thing that we've been working on or the thing we want, dopamine actually drops when we get the reward.
No way.
Yes.
Oh.
Now, dopamine, just for anyone that's listening and maybe has a bit more of a scientific mind, dopamine does increase when there's an unexpected reward. It's the reason why phones are so addictive. Will there be a notification? Won't they? Or they just randomly pop up and that unexpected reward releases dopamine. But in an unexpected reward, so if you're working on a goal or you're going on holiday or you've got something coming like a tax bill, I'm just joking.
The positive anticipation. Let's go to the other side.
Yes. Then dopamine drops when you receive it. And other neurochemicals are at play, which are like serotonin, oxytocin, which can make you feel good in the moment. But the problem with dopamine is that if you let you'll get that reward and then you'll think, oh, what's the next thing? And you won't relish in that happiness. And I think so many people resonate with that. They thought, oh, as soon as I got the car, I would have been happy. When I got the house, I would have been happy. When I got the job, I would have been happy. But people realize that when they reach their goal weight, they're still unhappy. And it's something that needs to be changed within them rather than waiting for the goal. We call it the arrival fallacy. It's a fallacy that tells you that when you get there, you'll be finally be happy.
Conditional happiness, that you have to set up this checklist. And then when you get it, there's a bit of a letdown because you've gotten it. And then you're in pursuit of that next thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
I call it the bowl with a hole syndrome, right? Like you can never get filled.
Yes. Yes. So just reshaping that kind of ideology that the pleasure is within the sort of journey that can help you sort of be happy on all points. And of course, there are nuances like a pay rise will help alleviate financial stress and all that jazz. But generally speaking, if we can find pleasure in the journey, then the whole thing becomes a joyful experience. And when you get the goal is to really relish in that moment as well.
This is a fantastic tool. This is a fantastic strategy because I think many of us don't savor enough, right? That's sort of the art of savoring, of really tasting or using all senses to experience the good things that happen.
Yes. And that's the tale, the tale of time where we say living in the present, living in the moment, and what that means is, someone might be listening going, well, I still don't really understand what that means, but that means being grateful, gratitude, finding the things that you're happy about, the small wins, the big wins. I do that with my clients. And sometimes, we'll start the call and they'll go, oh, well, nothing's happened this week. It's all been a bit rubbish. And then they'll say something and I go, oh, that's a small win. And they go, yeah. And then I'm like, oh, that's another small win. And they're like, oh, yeah. And then by the end, they say, well, I've actually had an amazing week. I just didn't see it.
And the elevation that one experiences in the recounting of those wins.
Yes.
That's the other thing, right? The reflection.
The body language changes. Yeah. The gratitude releases serotonin. It releases oxytocin. It releases, feel-good neurotransmitters such as endorphins, which are endogenous morphine, which make you feel really, really good. And it's a feedback loop because the more you practice gratitude, the better you feel. And the better you feel, the more you want to be grateful for things in your life. So really trying to spend a few minutes a day just sort of thinking about all the things you're grateful for can be really, really helpful in shifting that perspective of the arrival fallacy.
And this is interesting to contrast and compare because you're coming at this from a neuroscience perspective, and positive psychology research has yielded the same thing.
Yeah.
So you've got two different sciences, right, that are telling us that gratitude is good for us. It's good for our bodies, our brains, our relationships, our performance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. So Yeah, I think that that's an important one. And then, that kind of brings me on to my next point, is that the pleasure in the journey also means that we can kind of tie that in with a growth mindset. So changing our mindsets are so incredibly powerful. I've spoken about it in the book, and I know we're pressed for time, so I'll give you a quick little example of how important our mindsets are. So they've done studies again at Stanford. And what they did is they took two groups of people. They told one group that they were eating a sensible shake, 0 calories, sugar-free, low-fat, kind of, very sort of sensible shake. And they told this other group that they were drinking a super decadent sundae, chocolate sundae. It had a cream and a cherry on top. And they sort of saw these milkshakes before drinking them. And then what they did is they measured the ghrelin response 90 minutes after ingesting. Now, ghrelin is a hormone that tells you you're hungry. So if you haven't eaten a lot, that will be higher. There'll be more ghrelin in your body. If you've eaten a lot, then there'll be lower levels of ghrelin. What they saw was that the individuals that drank the sensible shake had higher levels of ghrelin, which makes sense because they didn't eat a lot of calories, if you will. But I guess you know what I'm going to tell you is that the shakes had the same amount of calories in them. It was just their belief.
It was the identical shake.
Exactly. So they were positioned differently.
Yeah.
They were packaged differently. Exactly. So they had these kind of ingredient placards that showed them the milkshake, and then they administered them in a simpler form. But they basically believed that they were drinking different shakes. And so their physiology, their body responded in a different way, depending on what their brain believed that they were drinking. Now, this isn't about tricking people or anything like that. It's about showing you how your mindset can have an effect on your body. And, there's consequence studies, which I've spoken about in the book, that show us that when we adopt a growth mindset, we start to live a more open and free life, because with a fixed mindset, we're attaching our identity to the outcome. So if you fail, you think there's something wrong with you. Your self-worth gets impacted. Then your body language changes to be more closed, to be more sullen, to be more kind of, reinforcing this belief that you're not good enough. And then you fail again. And then it becomes a cyclical kind of pattern.
This is great. And what I really love about what you are telling us is these interventions are self-directed, right? Like it doesn't require therapy. It doesn't require big interventions, no medication. It requires just us practicing these tools over and over and over again until it becomes part of our natural reset.
Exactly. And speaking of tools, one thing that you can do is something like visualization. And what I mean by that is, you're practicing in different scenarios of what you would do. So let me give you an example. You have a presentation or you have an interview with your boss for, the kind of those yearly things or quarterly things. I don't have one, so I don't know what they really are, but you have kind of like
we know
these meetings,
performance reviews.
There we go. Thank you. My brain hit a blank there. And you're worried. And you generally tend to think that it impacts your self-worth, because you generally tend to think that there's something wrong with you when these things go wrong. So if the interview goes bad or the meeting with your boss goes bad, then it impacts your self-worth. So what you can do is you can visualize yourself detaching from that outcome. Now, you can do that through mental practice. Some people are very good at imagining mentally, but other individuals have something called aphantasia, which is the inability to visualize mentally. Now,
say that word again.
Aphantasia.
Aphantasia.
Yes.
Wow. New word of the day.
Yeah. So if I say to you, imagine a red apple, some people can, but some people can't. But what that means is that you can then write it down, step-by-step process. This is how I'm going to feel. This is how I'm going to approach the meeting room. This is what I'm not going to do. This is how I'm going to take the feedback this time. And this is how I'm going to change my perception of it to make sure that I, change what I need to change, but not attach myself to the outcome. However that looks for you, you might need to spend a bit more time on this than what I've just given you. But what that does is it then prepares you for the actual meeting. And it starts to change that mindset. So when the report comes back and it's not as good as you thought, or the interview goes bad, you don't revert back to automatic, which is there's something wrong with me. I'm the problem. I don't have, the ability to do this.
This is great. Let me ask you about sort of going into the growth mindset and how we can transform these negative thoughts or the negative future fantasizing. What about adopting the attitude of no matter what the outcome, I'm going to learn that there's some opportunity in this for me?
Yes, and that is the fundamental sort of aspect of a growth mindset, is that there is learning in everything.
Yeah.
Now, the way that I explain it is that your brain is a database of information of everything it's ever experienced and everything that is solutions and outcomes that it's come to in different scenarios. So if you fail at something or you don't do very well, it's just a data entry point for your brain to say, this is what we don't do next time. This is how we change the course of action so we can be better, because we have parts of our brain that are, they're called error detection areas, which help you to change the course of action should something not go in your favor. We're actually very good at doing that. We just tend to hold ourselves back by repeating these beliefs of, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, I'm rubbish, I'm this, I don't have self-worth.
What's interesting is that humans are a resilient lot, right? Like by nature, we have the ability to go through tremendous difficulty to rebound and rise and overcome and move forward. You hear stories, countless stories, regardless of where we come from, of this sort of very basic human nature. And I think that is very, very hopeful, because it says that each one of us can learn and grow no matter what happens.
Yes, exactly.
We are nearly out of time, and I would love for you to recap those hacks, those interventions, those tools you gave us, and perhaps give us a couple more before we go.
Yes. So in the first part, we spoke about the physiological sigh. So the double inhale, long exhale. You use that in any stressful situation. You use that when you're overthinking, when you're anxious, because it helps to break those thoughts. Walking can help to deactivate that part of the brain that tells you that things are scary and soften that kind of information load that tells you that things are, catastrophized and worse than they actually are. We spoke about naming emotions. So when you name an emotion, it reactivates the frontal cortex, which is basically the center of the brain that is more reasonable, that's more logical, that has, an understanding of different scenarios without the emotional sort of load that comes with it. We spoke about gratitude in this part. So finding gratitudes that you can kind of shift that arrival fallacy, that kind of like, I'll be happy when, so that we can be more happy in that moment. And in visualization, trying to change the course of action in different scenarios so that you can start to shift your mindset to be, better prepared for different scenarios. There's one more hack, and that is preparing for setbacks. So when we prepare for setbacks, we are better prepared in situations, because if we've been repeating a particular pattern our whole life and we want to change that, under pressure, we're likely to go down the pattern that we've always gone with. What that means is, if you are somebody that says yes to people, but you want to start saying no, if you are, flustered, busy at work, and someone says, oh, actually, could you send that email for me? And your automatic is yes, but you want to say no. If you haven't practiced saying no in your own spare time,
I love this.
You will say yes under pressure, because that is just the way that the cookie crumbles in the brain. It will take the path that's more traveled. Now, preparing for setbacks can also look like preparing for things that may come your way. Like you might be tired, you might have children that, keep you up, or etc., which can means that when that moment comes, you're still on track for those habits, because you have taken that into consideration. You've said, I knew that the children could keep me up last night and I was going to be tired, but this is my plan B. This is what I'm going to do today instead. I don't want to go for my 1 hour workout. So I'm going to do that 20-minute one that me and my coach put together in the case of emergencies.
Love that. So contingency planning.
Yeah.
Which maintains control too, right? It gives the locus of control back to the individual when you become dysregulated, all of us, right? Because it will happen. Like it's an inevitability. Things will happen.
Exactly.
And they will be sucky at times. I think it's okay to say that.
Yes, I think it's great. I think it's perfect. And when we do those setbacks, I just want people to understand that, because I get the question is, am I going to ruminate? Am I going to go down a route of worrying? But when you're doing it as a goal-directed activity, you're in a different state of mind.
Yeah.
Your brain is in a logical mind state.
And what about giving permission for that fine wine? Like, it's like, okay, I'm going to set a timer of 5 minutes to just have at it, to just express it all. And then I'm going to, when the timer bell goes off, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it as well. I love that. I might adopt that.
Yeah, so
I'll
it's
try
like
it.
you're not ignoring it, right? You're
Yes.
just saying, okay, I'm going to put bookends around this and not let it consume me.
Yes, I had that this morning actually, and I went for a walk and I felt so much better. But I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, give airtime to it.
Yeah, revel in it a little bit as well, and then come out of it and go.
Yes.
Yeah,
We're out of time. We could carry on this conversation more, and we will. We will. Maybe you'll come back again, and we'll do more. The book is Rewire. Break the cycle, alter your thoughts, and create lasting change. My guest today has been neuroscientist Nicole Vignola. You can learn more at NicoleNeuroscience.com and on Instagram, also at Nicole Neuroscience. Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. It's been amazing. And
amazing.
I could talk to you forever.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Thanks for joining us on Harvesting Happiness today. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen on behalf of my guest, Nicole Vignola, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day, and remember to be kind to one another. Want to explore more sound ideas for better well-being? Check out our new bonus edition content at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by Lisa Cypers Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the excellent team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guess, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.